The palace of the Alien Empire stood like a shining mountain of glass and gold, floating above the clouds of their capital world. Every wall glowed softly with blue light. Every corridor hummed with quiet music made by alien energy crystals. But inside this perfect place, something was very wrong. For 3 long lunar cycles, the twin daughters of the Alien Empress had not slept. At first, the palace doctors said it was only a small problem. They will rest soon, they promised. But days turned into weeks and the twins' bright eyes began to fade. Their laughter stopped. They grew weak, pale, and afraid. Every time they closed their eyes, they screamed. The Empress, ruler of more than 1,000 star systems, was losing control. Her daughters, Princess Sarai and Princess Nira, were her only family. She had conquered worlds, defeated enemies, and broken rebellions. But now she faced something she could not fight, a sickness of the soul. The palace was no longer filled with celebration. It was filled with fear. Guards whispered that the twins were cursed. Servants said that dark spirits haunted their dreams. The Empress had spent fortunes bringing healers, scientists, and even psychic priests to the palace. None could help. Some fainted when they entered the twins' chamber. Others ran away, trembling, saying something inside the room whispered their names. And then there was Eli Carter. He was not a hero, not a scientist, not even a soldier. He was a janitor, one of the few humans allowed to work in the Zalari Palace. Every night while others slept, Eli swept the crystal halls, cleaned the glowing floors, and polished the Empress's golden statues. He had come from Earth years ago after losing his wife and daughter in a fire. He didn't talk much. He just worked quietly and carefully like a man trying to forget. No one noticed him. No one spoke to him unless they needed something cleaned. But one night, as Eli worked near the royal wing, he heard something strange. It wasn't the hum of energy walls or the soft echo of guards' boots. It was crying, small, broken crying. He froze. The sound came from behind the tall silver doors of the princess's room. 2 guards stood outside, tense and still, their faces pale. The crying grew louder, 2 voices trembling in pain. Eli looked at the guards. "Aren't you going to help them?" he asked softly. The taller guard shook his head quickly. "No one goes in there," he whispered. "The energy field will burn anyone who isn't royal." "But they're crying," Eli said. "It's forbidden," the other guard muttered. "Even the Empress doesn't enter without protection." Eli hesitated. The sound of the twins crying reminded him too much of his own daughter, Lily, when she used to wake up from nightmares. He remembered sitting by her bed, holding her small hand, whispering that everything was okay. That memory hurt, but it also gave him courage. He took a deep breath and said, "Then I'll risk it." Before the guards could stop him, Eli pushed the doors open. A wave of cold air hit him. The room was glowing faint blue, filled with strange floating dust that shimmered like starlight. The 2 alien girls lay on their beds, their silver hair spread out like rivers of light. Their eyes were open but distant, like they were seeing something terrible. When they noticed Eli, the glow around them flickered. One of them whispered, Who are you?" "I'm just a janitor," Eli said softly. "I clean floors. But I heard you crying." They stared at him, confused. No one had ever spoken to them like that, like they were just children. Eli slowly walked closer. He felt the air press against him, heavy and electric, but he kept moving. He sat down between their beds. "Sometimes when my little girl couldn't sleep," he said, "I would tell her stories. Would you like that?" The twins nodded weakly. Eli smiled a little. He began to speak, his voice calm and low. He told them about Earth, the forests, the rain, the songs of birds. He told them about the stars humans could see at night, tiny but beautiful. He even hummed a soft tune, a lullaby from his daughter's childhood. The glow in the room grew softer. The air became warmer. The twins closed their eyes, not in fear this time, but in peace. Their breathing slowed. Outside, the guards stared in disbelief. The room's dangerous energy field had vanished. The sensors showed calm readings for the first time in months. When Eli quietly stepped out, one of the guards whispered, "What did you do?" Eli looked down at his broom and said, "I just listened." Far away in the throne hall, the Empress felt something strange, a gentle silence replacing the usual waves of fear coming from her daughter's room. For the first time in 3 months, the palace slept in peace. And no one yet knew that the quiet human janitor had just done what all the galaxy's greatest minds could not. He had brought calm to the sleepless palace. The next morning, the palace woke to whispers. The impossible had happened. The royal twins, Princess Sarai and Princess Nira, had slept for almost an hour. For most people, an hour of sleep was nothing. But in the sleepless palace, it was a miracle. Guards told the story in hushed voices. A human janitor had gone inside the forbidden chamber and calmed the princesses. Some said he used magic. Others said he risked his life. The Empress didn't believe any of it. A janitor? She hissed. How could a creature that scrubs floors do what my healers cannot? Still, her advisors begged her to investigate. So she ordered the palace AI to replay the chamber footage. What she saw silenced her. There was no technology. No spell, no power field. Only a man sitting on the floor, humming softly as the twins' hearts slowed to peace. For the first time, the Empress saw something she didn't understand. Eli Carter woke up that same morning feeling nervous. He didn't plan to be a hero. He just couldn't ignore two scared kids. He had slept in the janitor's quarters, small, cold and quiet, but for the first time in years, he'd dreamed of his daughter Lily. She had been smiling in that dream. When he stepped into the hallway with his cleaning cart, two guards approached him quickly. Human Eli Carter, one said stiffly. Her Majesty commands your presence. Eli blinked. Me? I didn't break anything, I swear. They didn't laugh. Follow us. He followed through golden corridors lined with floating banners. The walls shimmered with alien light, showing images of the Empress's victories. Planets kneeling before her, fleets of ships glowing like fireflies. Eli felt small, like a dust mote in a storm. When he entered the throne hall, he saw her for the first time. The Alien Empress sat on a high seat made of crystal and silver. Her eyes glowed a faint gold, and her long crown pulsed with living energy. Around her stood advisors, soldiers, and scientists, all staring at him like he was an insect who had crawled into a temple. Eli bowed awkwardly. Your Majesty? Her voice was calm but sharp. Human, you entered the royal chamber without permission. By law, that is a punishable act, yet you claim to have helped my daughters. I don't claim anything, Eli said quietly. They were crying. I just talked to them. Talked, she repeated slowly, like it was a word she hadn't heard in centuries. Explain. Eli rubbed the back of his neck. Back on Earth, when my daughter couldn't sleep, I'd tell her stories. I just did the same. I told them about the rain. The sound of it helps people relax. I think they liked it. The Empress's advisors whispered to each other, confused. One said he used no psychic field, no hypnotic waves. Another scoffed. A human lullaby cannot affect royal minds. But the Empress raised her hand for silence. Her golden eyes studied Eli's face carefully. You risked death for children who are not your own. Why? He took a slow breath. Because I know what it's like to lose a child's smile. For a moment, the throne room fell completely silent. Even the machines that floated in the air paused their humming. The Empress's voice softened, just slightly. My daughter smiled for the first time in many cycles last night. Eli bowed his head. Then I'm glad. After a long pause, she said, You will return to their chamber tonight. Under watch. If you can bring them peace again, I will hear more of your methods. That night, Eli returned to the twins' room. This time, no guards tried to stop him. They watched from the doorway, uncertain but curious. The two princesses were sitting up, pale but awake. When they saw Eli, their faces lit with faint smiles. You came back, whispered Sarai. I said I would, Eli replied gently. Did you like the story about the rain? Nira nodded. It sounded safe, Eli smiled. Then tonight I'll tell you about the sea. Big waves, wind, and tiny shells that sing when you hold them to your ear. The twins leaned close, listening like small children hearing wonder for the first time. As he spoke, the strange glowing mist around them dimmed again. Their breathing grew even. Within minutes, their eyes began to close. Outside the door, the Empress stood silently, unseen by Eli. She had come to see the truth with her own eyes. When she saw her daughters finally fall asleep again, tears shimmered in her golden eyes, something no one in the Empire had ever witnessed. She whispered to herself, A human's words can calm what our machines cannot. When Eli stepped out, tired but smiling, he was shocked to see her standing there, He froze, unsure what to say. The Empress spoke softly. "Perhaps the universe has underestimated your kind." Eli shook his head. "No, ma'am. You just have to listen." And from that night on, the palace guards had a new name for him: the human who listened. The twin princesses slept again that night. Not long, only 2 hours, but enough to make the entire palace whisper like a hive full of startled bees. The royal healers called it a temporary improvement. The soldiers called it a miracle. And the Empress, though proud and unshaken before her court, stayed awake, watching the live readings of her daughter's energy fields, steady for the first time in months. In the lower levels of the palace, the human janitor, Eli Carter, sat alone in the staff cafeteria. His hands were rough from years of cleaning, but that night they trembled slightly. He didn't understand why the Empress had allowed him back in the princess's room. He didn't even understand why his words mattered. He was just a man who missed his daughter. He stirred his drink, lost in thought. Some alien workers avoided him now, whispering that he was touched by the royal curse. Others nodded with secret respect. But Eli didn't care about rumors. All he cared about was the sound of those two girls breathing softly as they drifted off to sleep. For the first time in years, he felt like he'd done something good. The next morning, before the sun crystals rose, 2 royal guards came for him. "Her Majesty commands your presence," one said firmly. Eli sighed. "Again?" They didn't answer. When he entered the throne hall, it was darker than before. The Empress sat in silence, surrounded by tall figures in black cloaks, the psychic priests of the royal mind order. Their eyes glowed faint violet, and when Eli walked in, he felt a strange pressure in his skull, like invisible hands searching through his thoughts. He winced. "Could you, not do that?" The Empress lifted her hand and the pressure stopped. Her gaze was sharp. "My daughter slept again. But last night the palace sensors detected something strange." "Strange?" Eli asked. "One of the twins' neural waves synchronized with yours," she said slowly. "That has never happened between a human and a Zalari royal, ever." Eli blinked. "I don't even know what that means." "It means," one of the priests hissed, "you have formed a forbidden connection. The royal mind is sacred. A janitor has no right to touch it." Eli stepped back. "I didn't touch anything. I just talked to them." "Silence!" the priest snapped. But the Empress raised her hand again, silencing him instead. Her eyes glowed brighter. "Explain exactly what you did." Eli hesitated. "They were scared. So I told them stories. About Earth, about how the ocean sounds like breathing when you listen at night. I think it helped them feel safe." The Empress studied him in silence. Then she spoke softly, almost to herself. "Safety, a simple human word. Yet my empire, with all its power, could not give it to them." The room fell quiet. Then one advisor stepped forward. "Majesty, this connection could be dangerous. If the human's mind links too deeply, it may corrupt the royal bond. We cannot allow it to continue." Eli frowned. "Corrupt? I'm not trying to hurt them." The Empress looked at him for a long time. Then she stood. "Leave us," she ordered her advisors. The hall emptied slowly until only she and Eli remained. When the doors closed, her voice softened again. "Human, tell me the truth. Why do you risk your life for 2 children who are not yours?" Eli looked down. "Because I used to have a little girl. She couldn't sleep after her mother died. I would stay up all night telling her stories. One night the fire took her before I could reach her room. Since then, I guess I can't walk away when I hear a child cry." The Empress's golden eyes flickered with something that almost looked like sorrow. "On my world," she said quietly, "we are taught to rule with reason, not emotion. But you, human, act from pain, and yet from that pain you bring peace." She turned away for a moment, thinking. "The bond you created may be dangerous, yes, but if it helps them, I cannot forbid it." Eli frowned. "So I can still see them?" She nodded slowly. "You will return tonight. But you must never speak of what happens between you and them. If the council learns the full extent of this link, they will destroy you." Eli took a deep breath. "I'm not afraid for me, Your Majesty." "I'm afraid for them." A faint smile ghosted across her lips, cold but real. "Then perhaps, human, we are not so different." That night, Eli entered the twins' chamber once more. They smiled when they saw him, eyes glowing faint blue. "You came back," Nira whispered. "Of course," Eli said. "I promised." When he sat down and began to hum, the air shimmered again. The same pulse that the palace sensors had detected, The strange synchronization returned stronger. But this time something else stirred in the shadows of the room, unseen. A faint whisper like a breath behind the stars. As the twins fell asleep, their dreams reached out again, searching for the one human who had dared to listen. And somewhere deep in the palace sensors, an alarm blinked red. Something had entered their dreams with him. The palace sensors flickered through the night. Strange pulses of light traveled through the royal wing, soft, rhythmic, almost like a heartbeat. The technicians didn't understand it. The psychic priest called it an echo, but the Empress said nothing. She only watched the readings from her daughter's chamber with quiet eyes. The human's voice, soft and steady, was heard through the recordings. He was singing again. Eli Carter sat between the twin beds, his rough hands resting on his knees. The alien princesses, Sarai and Nira, lay on silken sheets that shimmered like moonlight. The air around them glowed faint blue, but this time it didn't feel cold or heavy. It felt alive, warm like a memory. The twins' breathing matched his rhythm, their energy field humming softly in time with his voice. Eli had never thought his old earth lullabies meant much. He used to hum them when his daughter Lily was small, songs about rain, stars, and long summer nights. They weren't special, just simple human tunes. But here, light years away from home, they were magic. He sang softly, "Sleep, little one, the world is wide. The stars will guard you through the night. Close your eyes, don't be afraid, the dawn will come, the dark will fade." The twins' silver lashes fluttered. For the first time since their birth, they both fell into deep, calm sleep at the same time. Eli smiled faintly, brushing a tear away before it could fall. "Good night, little stars," he whispered. Outside, the Empress stood behind the half-open door. She had never seen her daughter so peaceful. No healers, no machines, no psychic ritual had done what this simple human had done, with nothing but his voice and heart. The royal AI beside her spoke softly. Neural stability restored. "Dream patterns normal," the Empress whispered. "Normal. After all these months." She didn't know why, but something inside her, something long frozen, warmed. When Eli stepped out quietly, he found her waiting in the corridor. He froze, unsure whether to bow or apologize. The Empress looked at him with unreadable eyes. "You call that sound a lullaby?" "Yes, Your Majesty," Eli said softly. "Human parents sing them to help children sleep. My daughter loved them." "Your daughter," she repeated. Eli nodded. "She passed away. I think that's why I wanted to help your girls." The Empress was silent for a long moment. Then she said, "Our healers tried everything. Energy realignment, neural harmonics, dream extraction, all failed. And yet you, just one human, did this." Eli shrugged lightly. "Maybe they didn't try love." Her golden eyes narrowed, not in anger but in curiosity. "Love. We have no word for that in the royal language." "Then maybe you should," Eli said quietly. Over the next nights, Eli returned again and again. The twins waited eagerly each evening, sitting up on their beds when they heard his footsteps. They asked about Earth, about snow, about fireflies, about the smell of rain. He told them stories of small things, ordinary things. A father and daughter catching falling leaves. A night when thunder scared them both. A song sung beside a window full of stars. The twins listened with wonder, and the palace changed. Servants who had once whispered in fear now smiled when they passed the royal wing. Guards began to hum the same tune Eli sang. Even the palace lights seemed softer at night. The sleepless palace had found its peace, but not everyone was pleased. In the deep chambers below the palace, the psychic priests gathered again. "The human's bond is spreading," one said. "It disturbs the ancient balance." Another hissed. "His emotions interfere with the royal energy. If he continues, the twins' power may become human." They turned to the Empress's advisor. "He must be removed." But when the Empress heard their proposal, she only said, "No." "Majesty," one dared to argue, "he is a danger. Silence," she thundered. Her voice shook the air. "For cycles you called my daughters cursed. This human gave them peace. You will not touch him." The priests bowed low, but in their eyes burned quiet hatred. That night Eli noticed something odd. When he finished his lullaby, the twins whispered his name in their sleep. The sound was clear and strange, almost echoing from somewhere else, like two voices calling him from inside a dream. Eli frowned. Weird, he murmured. But when he looked down, both girls were smiling in their sleep. He didn't see the faint shimmer spreading from their temples to his fingertips. The same light that flowed through their alien blood now flickered softly beneath his human skin. Unseen. The connection between them deepened, stronger than any technology, older than any law. And far away, in the dark corners of the palace, the sensors began to hum again, warning of something new. A link had been formed. Not of science, not of blood, but of a human lullaby that crossed the stars. The nights in the Zalari palace had grown calm, almost too calm. The lullabies of the human janitor echoed softly through the royal corridors, and for weeks the twin princesses slept peacefully. The Empress had begun to smile again, faintly but truly. Even the guards said the palace finally breathed after months of fear. But peace never lasts long in places built on power. One evening, as the twin moons rose over the crystal towers, the palace sensors picked up something strange, a pulse beneath the floor, deep and rhythmic, like a second heartbeat under the structure itself. The technicians ignored it at first, but the readings grew stronger every night, matching the twins' sleep cycles exactly. The palace AI whispered a quiet warning to the Empress. Something is echoing within their dream fields. She stared at the glowing charts in silence. Echoing, she repeated. Or answering. That night, Eli Carter entered the princess's chamber as usual. The twins were waiting, their silver hair glowing faintly in the starlight. Another story tonight? Asked Nira with a sleepy smile. Eli nodded. Sure, but first, how are you feeling? Sarai looked thoughtful. Better, but sometimes when I dream, I see a place that isn't real. A dark place, Eli frowned. A nightmare? Not exactly, she whispered. It feels alive. Before Eli could respond, the Empress's advisor appeared in the doorway. Human, he said coldly. Her Majesty requests your presence after your session. Eli nodded politely. Of course. The twins watched him with worry. They don't like you, Nira said quietly. Eli smiled. That's okay. Grown-ups never liked me much back on Earth either. He sat down and began his usual story. Tonight it was about the ocean again. How waves moved like breathing, how the stars above the sea looked like reflections of the soul. His voice filled the room, soft and warm. The twins' eyelids grew heavy. Their energy fields glowed steady blue. But then, something changed. The light around them pulsed once, sharply. The temperature dropped. Eli felt the hairs on his arms rise. The air tasted metallic. Hey, he whispered. What's going on? The palace monitors outside began flashing warnings. Neural distortion detected. Dream field breach. Inside the chamber, the girls began to twitch in their sleep. Their faces twisted in fear. Eli, Nira gasped, though her eyes were still closed. It's here again. What's here? He shouted, standing up. The walls of the chamber flickered and the air darkened. A black mist rose from the floor, twisting like smoke but moving with purpose. Shapes formed, long hands, whispering mouths, faces without eyes. Eli stumbled backward, heart pounding. No, no, no. This isn't real. But it was. The twins were trapped inside their dream, and the dream was bleeding into the waking world. Eli did the only thing he could think of. He reached for them. You're not alone, he said, grabbing their hands. You're safe, I'm right here. For a moment, the shadows stopped. The black mist rippled as if confused. The strange faces turned toward him, then they screamed. The sound wasn't heard with ears, it hit straight into his skull. Eli fell to his knees, clutching his head. The guards outside rushed in but froze instantly. Their armor lights flickered out. The Empress herself arrived moments later, her crown blazing gold with psychic power. What have you done, human? She demanded. Eli shouted over the noise. It's not me. Something's inside their dreams. The Empress raised her hand, releasing a surge of energy that filled the chamber with light. The shadows hissed, recoiling, but didn't disappear. They're feeding on fear, Eli yelled. You're scaring them more. The Empress hesitated. Then, seeing the twins' faces twisted in terror, she stepped back, trembling. Then what do we do? Eli didn't think. He sat back down, still shaking, and began to hum. The same old Earth lullaby. At first it sounded absurd. a human song in the middle of an alien psychic storm. But as his trembling voice grew stronger, the darkness wavered. "Close your eyes, the stars will stay. Hold my hand, I'll chase the gray." The twins' breathing slowed. Their small hands tightened around his. The black mist began to retreat, twisting back into the cracks of their dream. One last echoing whisper filled the room before it vanished. "He does not belong." Then silence. The twins lay still, sleeping deeply once more. Eli exhaled shakily. Sweat dripped from his forehead. The Empress stared at him wide-eyed. "You faced it," she whispered. "Without weapons, without power," and it listened. Eli stood, his legs weak. "It wasn't listening to me, Your Majesty. It was listening to them. I just helped them remember they weren't alone." The Empress looked toward her daughters and then back at him. "The shadow was not born of this world," she said softly. "It came through their dreams, and now it knows your name." Eli felt a chill deep in his bones. "Then I guess I'll have to go after it." The Empress frowned. "Go after it? Into their dreams? That's impossible." He met her eyes steady. "Maybe, but I'm not losing another child to the dark." And in that quiet moment, the fate of the sleepless palace, and perhaps of both their worlds, changed forever. The following day, the Zilari Palace felt like a storm trapped inside glass. Guards moved faster. Scientists whispered to each other with pale faces, and the Empress's private command room flickered with hundreds of holograms, all showing the same strange pattern pulsing inside her daughter's neural scans. A dark wave. Living. Moving. And now, aware of the human, the royal healers called it the dream shadow. The priests said it was a creature from the psychic layer of the mind, something that fed on fear and memory. But no one had ever seen it before except Eli Carter. He sat in a small medical chamber surrounded by alien machines that hummed softly around him. A dozen scanners hovered near his head, flashing blue lights into his brain. One of the doctors, a tall Zilari with glassy skin, said, "Your neural patterns have changed, human. The twins' dream frequency is imprinted onto your mind." Eli frowned. "In English, please?" "It means," the doctor said slowly, "you are partially connected to them now. You carry a piece of their dream energy." Eli rubbed his forehead. "So I'm stuck with alien nightmares in my head?" The doctor didn't answer. Moments later, the Empress entered. Her presence filled the room like quiet thunder. "Leave us," she commanded. The doctors obeyed instantly. When the door sealed shut, she turned to him. "You said last night that you would go after it. Did you mean that?" Eli met her golden gaze. "Yes, that's madness," she said. "No human has ever entered a Zilari dream space. Even my psychic priests fail to stabilize inside one. Your mind will burn." He smiled weakly. "Then it's a good thing I'm used to hard jobs." The Empress studied him for a long, silent moment. "Why would you risk this, human?" Eli's voice was quiet but steady. "Because when I lost my daughter, I couldn't save her. But I can save them." Something in her face softened only for a heartbeat. Then she turned away. "Very well. I will allow it. But know this, if you die in the dream, your body will not wake. I'll take my chances." Hours later, the Empress's scientists prepared the Dreamlink chamber, a massive silver sphere filled with shimmering blue mist. At its center lay two floating pods where the twins rested, still asleep but breathing gently. Their minds were locked inside the dream, trapped by the shadow. Beside them stood a third pod, made hastily for a human. Eli looked at it nervously. "You sure this thing won't fry me?" The head scientist didn't look confident. "It should, mostly, work." "That's comforting," Eli muttered. The Empress approached, her golden cloak trailing like sunlight behind her. "You must remember one thing," she said. "The dream obeys emotion, not logic. If you lose control of your fear, it will devour you." Eli nodded. "Then I'll just have to be brave enough for all three of us." He stepped into the pod. The lid closed with a hiss. Cold mist wrapped around his body. "Begin the link," the Empress ordered. The world vanished. Eli opened his eyes and found himself standing on a dark ocean. The water reflected no stars, only rippling shadows. The air was heavy, thick like smoke. In the distance, two small figures stood, Sarai and Nira, clutching each other, trembling. He ran toward them. "It's okay. I'm here." They turned, eyes wide with fear. "You came," whispered Sarai. We tried to call you, but it hurt us. It's fine, Eli said, kneeling. We'll face it together. The ocean stirred. A voice rose from the black water, deep, echoing, cruel. You do not belong here, human. Eli looked up. The sea took shape, forming a monstrous figure made of smoke and faces. The dream shadow? Maybe not, Eli said, standing tall. But they do, and you can't have them. The creature laughed, a sound like thunder underwater. They are mine. Their fear feeds me. Your love will break you. Eli's heart pounded, but he took a deep breath. You're wrong. Love doesn't break. It fights. He reached for the twins' hands. Light flared from their touch, soft, golden human light. The shadow screamed as the light spread, burning through the darkness. The world shook. The twins clung to him, crying out. Eli held them close, whispering the same lullaby he'd sung so many times. Close your eyes, the stars will stay. Hold my hand, I'll chase the gray. The black sea boiled. The creature thrashed, screaming until its voice cracked and faded into nothing. When the world finally went silent, the ocean turned clear. The stars above returned. Sarai looked up at him. It's gone, she whispered. Eli smiled weakly. Told you. Dreams can't hurt you if you don't face them alone. The light around them brightened until it swallowed everything. Outside the dream, the Empress watched in awe as the readings on the monitors shifted from chaos to calm. The dark pulses vanished. The twins' heart rates steadied. Then one more flat line appeared. Human neural signal. Dropping, said the scientist. Eli Carter, the Empress shouted. Bring him back! But it was too late. His pulse had vanished. Inside the pod, Eli lay still, peaceful, almost smiling, and in the twins' dream, the last sound that echoed before everything faded to white was his voice, whispering, Sleep well, little stars. The palace was silent. For the first time in months, no alarms blared, no healers rushed through corridors, and no whispers of fear floated through the air. The only sound was the soft hum of the life monitors beside the twin princesses' pods, and the faint, steady rhythm of their hearts. They were sleeping peacefully. But the third pod, Eli Carter's, was silent too. The screen above it showed no pulse, no brain activity, no movement. Only a single flat line. The Empress stood before it, her golden eyes dim. Around her, advisors spoke quietly, afraid to raise their voices. He has succeeded, one said softly. The twins' dream energy is pure again. The shadow is gone. Another added, but the human's mind did not return. The Empress raised a hand, silencing them all. She stared through the glass at Eli's still face. He looked calm, almost peaceful, like a man who had found what he was searching for. Leave us, she said quietly. When they were gone, she stepped closer and placed her hand on the glass. You entered my daughter's dreams when none dared to even enter their room, she whispered. You faced a darkness that terrified worlds, and now you lie silent. Her voice broke, though only slightly. Human, you have no title, no power, no throne. Yet tonight all of Zalari owes you their rest. Hours later the twins began to stir. The chamber lights grew warmer as their energy fields brightened. Their silver hair glowed faintly, their eyelids fluttered, and finally they opened their eyes. Mother? Nira whispered, her voice small. The Empress was by their side instantly. My stars, she said softly, her voice trembling. You're awake. Sarai blinked slowly. We dreamed. But it wasn't scary anymore. Nira smiled faintly. He was there. He held our hands. He told us to sleep. The Empress froze. He? The human, Sarai said. He said he'd keep the shadows away. The Empress looked toward the silent pod. Her throat tightened. He kept his word, she said quietly. Across the palace, news spread like sunlight breaking through clouds. The royal twins were cured. The sleepless palace had finally found peace. The guards cheered. The healers wept. Even the psychic priests bowed their heads in silence. But there was no celebration in the Empress's heart. She ordered a chamber built for the human, not of gold or crystal, but of light. At its center lay his body, surrounded by gentle waves of sound, his lullaby recorded from the palace logs. The same song that had once carried her daughters into sleep now filled the room endlessly. Every night the Empress visited. She never spoke much. Sometimes she would simply sit and listen. Sometimes she would whisper, You were right. Love is stronger than power. The galaxy began to hear the story too. Word traveled from planet to planet about a human janitor who calmed an alien empire's nightmares. Some called him a hero. Others said he was a myth. But the Empress knew better. He was a father. That was all he had ever been. Weeks later, something extraordinary happened. The twins began to hum in their sleep. Softly, the same tune Eli had sung. The palace AI detected faint neural activity near the dreamlink frequencies. The Empress was called immediately. "Majesty," the scientist said, trembling, "there's a new signal." "From where?" she asked. "From the twins' dream field," he replied. "And from the human's brain." The Empress's heart raced. She turned toward the silent pod. "That's impossible." But the monitor beside it flickered. A faint wave appeared, then another. Small, weak, but real. The scientists gasped. "He's responding to them." The Empress whispered, "He's keeping his promise." That night she entered the dream chamber one last time. The twins were already asleep, smiling peacefully. The Empress placed her hands on both of their heads and closed her eyes. For the first time, she used her own psychic power to step inside their dream. She found herself standing in a field of light, a place that smelled like rain. The sky was filled with countless stars, and there, by a small pond that reflected the cosmos, stood a human man with gentle eyes. He was holding the hands of two glowing girls. When he saw her, he smiled faintly. "Guess I'm not as gone as everyone thought." The Empress stepped closer, stunned. "You're alive." "In here, maybe," Eli said. "Doesn't matter. They're safe. That's what I promised." The Empress's voice shook. "You gave them peace." "And me hope." He looked at her kindly. "Then don't waste it. Teach them what love means. Tell them they were never alone." Before she could speak again, his body began to fade into the light. "Wait," she called. He smiled. "Don't worry, Your Majesty. Humans don't stay gone forever. We just rest." And with that, he was gone, leaving only the faint sound of a lullaby on the wind. When the Empress opened her eyes again, she was back in the chamber. Her daughters were still asleep, peaceful and glowing. She looked toward Eli's pod. The monitors were quiet again, but she knew what she had seen. From that night forward, she made a royal decree. No dream, no mind, no life shall ever be called lesser because of its origin. The heart of one human janitor has shown that courage and love are the strongest forces in the stars. And above the palace gates, new words were carved in gold. Eli Carter, the man who gave the stars their rest.